see, we decompartmentalize things, and I just wanna, just explain. So if it's a PR client, they will have a PR folder. If it's a branding client, they'll have a separate branding folder. If it's a full service, they'll have a PR folder. Okay, that may be something we change in the future, but as of right now, that's how it's done. If we have an event, we have a separate folder for events. That's because events require a lot of detail, and we don't want, because we work as a team, I didn't want people to have to remember what client it was if they were looking for an event. It would be about knowing that it was an event that happened because we learned from different events for different clients. Okay? And then from a photo standpoint, we isolate our photography into a photo library, which is in the photos folder for every client. So every client has a photos folder, they have a PR folder if they're a PR client. If we do events for them, they have a separate events folder. And if we do videos for them, they have a separate videos folder. So if we secure press for them, and it's a press video, that video should be saved in the video folder. And one of the reasons that we save in the video folder is those are very high resolution files. They require a lot of megabytes, and it's on a separate drive, okay? So I'm gonna dissect a typical standard PR folder for you. And these are the things that you should think of in terms of if you're starting with a new client, or you should be asking yourself, should I create this, should I not create this, etc. Alright, so I'm going to take, let's say, a Pura as an example. Sorry. Okay. And one of the first things that you should start with is a contact sheet. Okay, one of the reasons that I created the contact sheet is because throughout your tenure of working with a client, this should have a logo in it, but throughout your tenure of working with a client, you're going to come across contact protocol and contacts that you need to be in touch with on an ongoing basis. One of the things that you should think about is, again, the team environment that we work on. I want to make it simple and easy for anybody working on my team to find the information that they need. I also want to make sure that if I'm the keeper of information that my team member needs, I have it saved someplace so that it's as easy as pie for them to look for it. And what you'll see happens along the way is client contacts change, client protocol may change, so that's what the client contact sheet is for. Even though we use Gab shared Outlook contacts to add contact information to, it's very important to double up on adding the contact information here to the contact sheet. At the end of the day, the contact sheet is a one-sheet reference on who to go, where to go to, who to send protocol to, etc. for any client. The reason why you still have to add them in Gab Outlook contacts is why? So that everybody has access to it, and also really importantly, so that you're saving time on if you open up an email, that email address could come up quickly and easily, rather than you having to manually type it as well. So in terms of the contact sheet, if this is a restaurant, or even if it's not a restaurant, even if it's just a standard entity, the business address should be in here. The correct spelling and the title and the contact information, and sometimes people have, two different types of preferred emails, like a personal email and then a work email. Everything should be stated in the contact sheet. So the minute that I start with a client, and any one of you should already start with a client contact sheet. This is the interior design company, and these are the people that have to be CC'd on, interior design communication. This is the photographer that the client provided us with that does all their photography. So again, when do you add a contact to a client contact sheet? When you know it's something you're going to have to reference and re-reference over and over again. It's my webmaster. It's, all these things come through standard email. But we're only strong enough as how we develop and organize our communication. So again, if you're the keeper of information and the client says to you, here, contact my webmaster, that's an automatic oh, light bulb, let me put that in the contact sheet. And then how do you tell other people that it's been done? Well, send them an email, communicate to your team and let them know that you've updated the contact sheet with new protocol. I also like to do, here's like the trademark attorney for this client. And again, that probably came through an email, and these tools help us organize this stuff for the future. I guarantee you, if we didn't have a contact client sheet for this, we would never be able to find who the trademark attorney was that they had once given to us, okay? So it's all about making your job easier, and I'm really big about making your job easier. It's all about organization, to be honest. So client contact sheet, very important, and making sure that you still double up these contacts and the relevant contacts. Like just as an example, I may not need to put the trademark attorney for Apira in Gab contacts because I'm not going to be emailing him every day, and neither is the company. But as long as it's in the contact sheet, that's a fine place for it, because it's a really go-to web on the contacts that I'm going to need for that specific client. Very big on file naming convention, okay? You start with the client name, you underscore, and then what it is. Okay, that's why it's underscore contact sheet. This is challenging. Alright,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I gotta step out.
That's fine. Okay, you'll be able to see the video. No problem. Thank you. Good luck. Okay. Client-provided assets. I know we spoke a little bit about this, and I'm telling you that this is going to be one of your favorite folders and one of the most essential things to do, because what happens a lot is that a client will send us information, they'll send us content, they'll send us a menu, they'll send us something, and then you have no idea whether it was something that the agency created or your team member created if it's not in the client provided assets folder. Because it will come up, they'll say, well, I sent you this, etc. And so basically anything that's important to save for the client, which is anything that the client really sends us, because your team member is going to need it if you don't need it. Somebody's going to need it. It's important to save it in the client provided assets folder. Now, when you save something in the client provided assets folder, again, we're still sticking to the naming convention. See, this is a typo. Of the client underscore and what this item is. Very, very important to also save it underscore date if it's something that you're going to have multiple copies of. Because what's going to happen 9 out of 10 times is, first of all, clients suck at naming things, okay? They really do. It's like doc1tsy. I don't know what it means. Do you?
I think let the computer name it.
Yeah, and then it's like doc12, like they have no, so all of our naming conventions are very important so that you don't make a mistake and that you're only pulling the most relevant information from what they just sent you. So especially when you have something like menus or you have something like a brochure version, you're gonna name it client underscore brochure underscore V1 underscore the date. Sometimes you'll see that when it's the case of menus where we have many menus, we'll break out the menus into a menus folder. Okay, just because there could be so many different versions, and it's so important that every time we receive a version from the client, we're saving the date. Not only are we saving the date sometimes, but sometimes you have 5 people communicating to you, and chef number 1 made a change that chef number 2 didn't make. And so I like to also save the underscore of who gave me that asset if there's a situational thing at hand with so many people giving you information, because that can happen as well.
It's also great for searching. If you have to do a search, you can if you just look for that one word, it's going to be a lot easier to pull that up.
Exactly, and thank you for saying that, because so much of our naming convention and how we name files is about saving. Because if it's blah, 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 and it's a menu or it's a brochure, I don't know, and your team member doesn't know either. But if you say brochure, it's like, oh, light bulb, brochure, great, found it. Okay.
I think the other thing that's so important about this file, and I was so glad to see it in here, was that a lot of people, when they take over as the point person, will make the mistake in just emailing the client asking them for something, and the client's like, well, I already gave it to you.
Exactly.
And it's very irritating for them to be like, well, but you why would I have to send it to you
Exactly,
again?
you guys should know everything already, 100%.
100%.
Okay,
Can I just ask a quick
sure.
question
That's why
about
I never
that?
post
Because like if you have her headshot as a photo in there, should that also be saved in photos?
Yes, yes.
So it should be duplicated and saved in both places?
You just drop it a couple places.
And it is duplicated for a reason, because we know that it's the one that they sent us. Now, if they sent us a whole disc of photos, no, you're not gonna duplicate it.
Right.
You're just gonna put it in photos. But let's say they sent us the headshot that they loved the most, I would save it in both places.
Okay.
For instance, also, I have a situation where I get a job from a client and they send somebody that another design company sends to. If you're referencing that design in the job, I drop it not only in the job itself, the materials folder, and the client provided assets.
Right.
So it's actually in 3 places just in case.
Yeah.
So
And there's total reasons
Yeah.
for this. I mean, as much as I would like to reduce duplication, there is some
it has to be there.
necessity in certain situations for duplication. Okay, so I'm gonna go through some key folders, okay, because there are some key ones that are gonna be consistent and should be consistent in every client, and then there are some, alternatives. So, we talked about the contact sheet, we talked about the client provided assets folder. I'm gonna start with the next folder that is, very essential to our process from a PR standpoint, and that is the press kit folder. So Apura_press kit. Now, I have worked this system for a long time, and it works well when everyone follows the system. When everyone follows the system, and normally everyone follows the system. Okay, and actually it's not even correct in this sentence, because it really should be renamed. Oh, I can't rename. Let me find a different one. Hold on, I'll show you. Okay, this is the right one. Alright. Every press kit folder, think of your press kit folder as your toolkit for any document or materials you need to pitch a client to media. That's the only thing that belongs in that folder. So that means if it's a bio, it goes in there. If it's a press release, it goes in there. If it's a fact sheet, it goes in there. It's my go-to toolkit for once it's been approved, I'm using that for media. That communicates to everybody working on that client that if I have it doesn't matter even if I'm a publicist or I'm not a publicist, I work on that account, I don't work on that account. If I'm looking for the approved media information, it's in the press kit folder. So, every press kit folder needs to have a draft folder, okay? The place of which, like the things that should live in the draft folder is everything in progress. Even if Chelsea's working on it and it shouldn't be saved in her employee folder. It's a draft in progress for a client. It should be named client _ what the name of that deliverable is and whether it's draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, etc.
And the final one is only once the client has approved it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So basically, this is very important.
It really is.
It really is, because it just,
Drives me batty when
Right.
it's not done right.
so here's the draft folder, okay? And then here's the documents that live outside of the draft folder, okay? And then this is the press kit folder. Okay, in the draft folder, you will have client _ let's say launch release, whatever, _ draft 1. And you can put the date, okay? It goes draft 1, draft 2, sorry, I'm missing T's, and then it goes _ for client approval. Why?
So you know which one you sent last?
So you know which one got sent by the agency to the
client.
client for approval. Because if it's just draft 2, whatever, that could be internally, I have no idea if that went to the client or not. I'm blind, I'm relying on my team member to see. So it needs to go client _ launch release, agency retention release, FAQ sheet, whatever it is, underscore draft 1, underscore draft 2, underscore draft 3, how many drafts we need internally, and then for client approval. Even if draft 2 is the same as for client approval, I don't care. Save draft 2 and then save for client approval so that we all know which one was sent to the client for approval. Okay? Once it comes back from the client, right now all of this lives in the draft folder. I am a draft, I am not final, I live here. Once it's done, that person makes sure to name it okay? And I don't even put the date, I don't even put the date on it, to be honest, because when you're pitching reporters, I don't want a date on it, because what if I'm using a release from October to, So, if I'm final, that means what that communicates to people is, the clients approved it, the agencies approved it, it's good to go, it's a final piece of material, I can make this available publicly to media and other people, etc. And it lives out here. I don't care if final is the same as for client approval. Have 2 copies. It's a system that works beautifully to help communicate to everybody. Is that clear? Does anybody have questions about that? Now, multiple people do drafts, okay? Sometimes you have a situation where Cynthia might revise something, I might revise something in the draft. And so what I'll do sometimes, normally we all do it together, but let's say it's my draft versus her draft, I might do draft 1 underscore MS. But again, we want to avoid that happening, because at the end of the day, we need to be able to produce materials in a very cohesive manner and not have too many multiple drafts. At the end of the day, I don't want to confuse somebody if it's my draft or your draft. It really should just be draft 1, draft 2. So normally, I will, maybe I'll save a draft 3. We want to keep everything.
One time it happens was when we try to be extreme and say, you know what, you try that angle and I'm gonna try this angle.
Exactly, but normally that shouldn't happen. It should just be for the agency, draft 1, draft 2, draft, underscore for client approval, and then underscore final, okay?
It's really well organized, I love it. I
Thank
just
you.
love that I know I can go.
It's super simple, that
Yeah.
as soon as everybody understands it and they don't save anything other than drafts. Sometimes you'll see there's certain clients where we have so many PR materials that we take a separate folder inside the press kit folder for press releases and a separate folder for bios, and that's just because of curtailing things to make it simpler to find what you need, because we could have 25 press releases for Miami subs. But typically, out there in the open is where it needs to live.
What about by year? If you have a
Yes,
long-term
by year,
client?
it's just,
I've
exactly.
seen some like that.
100%. Right. Okay. Now, see this is not correct, because this should all live, like for review, draft, all of this should be living in the draft folder. Okay? Oh, it is in the draft folder, good.
Arlene needs to know if Brett's available.
Yeah, that's fine, go ahead, yeah, whatever you need. Okay, so you see here, so all this is final. Now, one of the materials here that we put into the press kit folder, because technically it's an asset that is public information and we'll use it both for media in addition to, let's say, marketing purposes, is what we call a dining guide listing copy. Okay, because we'll typically, and we could do like 75 word listing copy and 150 word listing copy, because sometimes, let's say if it's a restaurant, we'll do what we call dining guide listings, and so the publicist's job is to put together that approved copy and then provide it to the intern to then create the listing. Also, when we're pitching media, sometimes we need a short synopsis that's either 75 words or 150 words. And so just to make it easier on ourselves, I just have people do a 75 word version and a 150 version, because those are the 2 versions that I see a lot come up. And instead of having to recreate the wheel, it's like we've done it, it's part of our PR kit, and so we have it accessible to us whenever it happens. Okay, so if you're representing a restaurant client, the key tools, part of it would be the dining guide listing. Okay. Going back to other folders. Oopsies. Alright, so other key folders, so you've got contacts, client provided assets, press kit. Well, before I talk to you about press, I'm gonna talk to you about master deliverables. Okay, cause master deliverables is something that I created, and I'll tell you why I created it. Okay, let's see here. Okay. So one of the things I found a lot in working with people was that they didn't necessarily know how to see the bigger picture and how to take something from what I was saying to them into, okay, how do you really drill that down in terms of a checklist of what has to happen, okay? That's what the Master Deliverables is for. It's basically a tool that's designed to keep a working, running list of what deliverables are required. Deliverables are things that you need to do for a client or for the agency. So basically, instead of me having to constantly, have meetings and have discussions, not only with the agency but with the client, the master deliverables is kind of like a DNA structure of the strategy and execution of what work we need to complete for this client. And it's something that we call a working document. It's something that we actually share with the client because, again, the process of PR is very intangible. So this provides a very tangible way for them to know, well, what's next in our plate? Like, how do you go from just starting with the company to press? Fill all of that in for me in between, okay? So what I do, depending on the client, if the client's a full service, like this client, let's say, is full service, so I separate PR, media, outreach deliverables by branding deliverables. Okay, you see I have a marketing and branding section, website section, so that they are educated on, okay, this is everything that we have to do so that you need to understand what we're spending our time on. Okay, and this is basically like a bird's eye view of everything, oopsies, that we have to get done in your plan. Now, one of the things, there's a lot of documentation here that I've created, from the agendas to and it's honestly just designed to help you get on track, because a lot of people, they lose track half of the way or some of the way, and so this all that this is designed to do. All of these things are not only to help keep you on track, but help keep the client on track in terms of our progress. So, this is, and one of the reasons that I put status and hours is because one of my thought process was, okay, how can I make it even more tangible? Because unfortunately, we still have this situation that happens every day where a client has no idea how much time it takes to do something. No idea. so, it's like they don't, and so, maybe this makes it a bit more tangible, etc. Anyway, so basically, master deliverable sheet, it talks about the details, like what our strategy is. This is all custom to every client. We'll generally start with media and competitive research for any client because that's what has to go into our strategy of promoting a client or marketing or branding a client. And then media list development. And again, this information is really unique to every client that we're focusing on. So here, Apira, we want to target health-centric bloggers. So honestly, this is what helped, and this is what helped me communicate the strategy of who I was training. So, that you didn't have to worry, if you don't know Apira, you didn't have to worry about, well, okay, I have to build a media list, but who do I have to do it with? Well, you have to concentrate on health bloggers and entertainment bloggers. It's, PR is very strategic, so it's just something to help me help you and help the client as well know this is the big picture, this is everything we have to work on. So again, here, press kit and marketing kit, coordinate necessary interviews, create draft one of the press materials to include the following, the fact sheet, the mission statement. It's kind of like, and I told you so, in the sense of like, this is what we're telling you that we're gonna do for you. And as it happens, we're gonna send this to you as a working document, as an updated thing. One of the other things that are helpful is the list of what the client tells us that needs to be done. Because you'll see oftentimes what happens is when we go into PR meetings, you know, once we start the PR process, it's like, okay, we have 15 things on our to-do list, but then all of a sudden the client gives us 25 things. So it helps them see, well, you know, we kind of still have to finish these 20 things before we can do X, Y, and Z. It's just, so I add in things that came as an initiative from the client as well. But it's not designed to be so super detail oriented, it's really designed to give a broad stroke. Do you see what I mean? The details should be in more of like the agendas and the recaps and everything like that. Okay? And then I just, you know, I again, sectioning things, and that's something that you'll remember carried over from training session 1. It's just it's a much more organized way of thinking and working, and also materializing it for the client. Because, you know, that's something that always works to our detriment, in the sense of, we're called the Gab Group PR and Marketing. And so they think that they just have PR in their mind, but they don't realize that, well, we're doing marketing, we're doing branding, we're doing website, we're doing social media. You know, so that's why I like to section everything out for them, so that they see just how much it takes, how many deliverables have to happen for each of these projects, pieces of work that we're doing.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question about that?
Mhm.
So, I know you said like you'll bring it to a meeting and then add stuff
Just thinking.
to it.
Sorry, yeah.
Do you ever just like update them in email and send them it too, or do you only just like bring
Oh,
it in person to
100%.
meetings? Okay. So I was gonna ask
100%.
how like regularly would you update
I
them
don't
with the
like
master
to,
deliverable?
so I think that it's always a useful checklist to keep yourself on track.
Mhm.
I think like every 2 weeks maybe
With the
is,
client.
you can definitely email it to them, like whenever some big changes are made, I think it's important.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's something that you should constantly look back on and start crossing out. It'll show you just how far and how long it takes to complete these things, because it looks all easy on paper, but then
When you send them the email, do you, because obviously this would be an attachment, you send them an email with like a brief summary as well in it? Or do you like highlighting like, oh hey, if you take a look at this, or you just say,
I will just
please
say,
see?
like, as an FYI, so it depends. You know, what I like to do with clients is I like to have weekly reports.
Mhm.
So with the weekly report, I'll update the master deliverables. Again, if there's, you don't want to keep sending a piece of paper if there's not too much. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of like as needed.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Alright, so the next folder I want to talk to you about, and kind of just, again, these are key folders to start with. So contact, client provided assets, press kit, master deliverables. The meetings folder, we talked a lot about that, so that's where the agendas and the recaps get saved. And again, even though technically it'd be nice if you can label every agenda with like what was discussed, it's impossible. So it's, you know, so that our format for that is just _ meeting agenda with a date. Okay, so that you at least have a chronological order and you can look back. And that's something that you should regularly check as well. You should check your recaps to see what else has to be carried over, and make sure if something has to be added to the master deliverables, or, you know, nixed, or, you know, FYI.
The correct format is about the periods, right?
We should probably standardize it. Yeah, I mean, I see here people do _. We should just pick one. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
standardize
those are good
it.
questions.
We'll just pick
I
one.
can't even see
Yeah.
period.
And so I changed a few of the lifetime
Yeah.
event ones when I went
We'll
through that.
eventually standardize everything, but as long as it has a date for the meantime, and then we'll standardize. Okay, so the meetings folder. So the next folder is the press folder. Now, let me just explain the life cycle of how these things get created, okay? What should you put in the press folder? So, do you know how the press cycle happens, right? So what happens, because you guys are on the floor, so you know what happens.
So you mean with like from starting to pitching them and
Right.
well, I guess.
Well, so tell me, okay, you get a client press hit. Well, how does that get turned into a clip?
Oh, well, you send it to design and put please clip, and then you also send the client a media confirmation with like a little blurb about what the hit was about, a link to it, if it was online, how many unique visitors get that, or reach that outlet.
Mhm.
And then letting them know that our design team is working on clipping the hit.
Correct. Okay, very good. So I'm just gonna recap that.
Yeah, I said a lot of words.
Sorry, actually, wait, how do we subject line it, please click?
It's please clip in,
For
please clip
design.
colon with the client name and
Right,
parentheses, they
okay,
put the,
sorry.
The outlet.
the outlet, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So basically, we pitch reporters. After we pitch reporters and a hit comes through, and first of all, you should always have your Google alerts on to look for client hits, or if the team notices that a hit is in the newspaper, etc., through Allison's department. We're going to, of course, send an immediate notification to the client with a media confirmation email, which I'll show you after what that looks like. But we're also going to send it to design5@thegabgroup.com, which is the inbox responsible for producing the clip. And again, call to action on the subject line so that they know and they can easily find whether they've done this clip before or whether it's new. Please clip with the name of the client and the outlet. Okay, we don't want it to say please clip Apura, 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 and then not know it's on Sentinel, it's Miami Herald, etc.
So this is email instead of function point?
Yes,
All right.
because this is something we
So
can change
it's-
later
yeah,
on, but
I
it's
know
a huge volume
I've
of
heard about it,
things.
I never realized what it entailed, the clips, like,
Exactly.
oh, we're swamped in clips today, I'm like,
Right,
alright.
so,
Just,
right, so whether
connecting.
it's, now, what things should you clip, just cause I'm on this subject right now? You know, you get an editorial feature in the Palm Beach Post, electronic section, of course, you clip it. Now it got featured in the print section of the paper, of course, you clip it. Most of the newspapers now have PDFs, high resolution, so you should be clipping from that. Well, what if your client got featured on a radio show? How do you clip that? You should. So most of the times, let's say you got your client on the radio or on a television, if there's anything that lives online showing that your client was featured, let's say like Apura got featured on Deco Drive or whatever, go to the Deco Drive website, that's a clip. That's a clipping opportunity. It may not come up in your Google alerts, but you should look for it and you should have it clipped because that's something that you can then show as for your client as a portfolio, etc. Well, what about, I don't know, Kim Kardashian photographed at IPIC Theaters and she tweets about it. Or like you've got a CNN Money reporter that tweeted your story. Could you clip it? Of course you can clip it and you should clip it. Because you should really maximize any kind of PR marketing opportunity possible for the client. And what about your client is going to the South Florida Business Report, you're at the taping of the South Florida Business Report, you have a camera, which you always should, and you actually think of, oh my God, let me get a picture of them, whether it's at Bloomingdale's or at South Florida Business Journal with the host, that should be clipped as well. Because those are all pieces, tangible pieces that are kind of like press, promotional materials. So we're talking about press clips and the process of sending press clips. So you're gonna send an email to design5@thegabgroup.com with the subject line, please clip with the client name with the outlet, okay? And then once that happens, what it will do is it will go into the Dropbox. Now let me just take you to where that would be. Let's see here. Okay, this is gonna be a little bit different. So you have, okay. So again, data for us is the G drive. There is a Gab Dropbox right out there. There are individual client folders, okay? And The Dropbox is what should be considered a holding place for the pending version of a press clip. Why is it pending?
Make sure that you get all the pages, make sure it's,
It's pending because you have to approve it.
Mhm.
Meaning, this is your opportunity to see, is this done to the best level that it possibly could be for this client? Here are big no-nos, okay? And this is something I always struggle to explain to design. And, you know, they've done a very good job with understanding it. But let's say, you know, I once had, I don't know, whatever, a New York Times clip, okay? That's like the mother lode of all press clips, right? And so the New York Times is like literally like this big in the press clip, okay? Or let's say you got somebody a cover feature and it turned out this big in the press clip. It's like, that's the one piece of portfolio for your client. It's the one thing that they're gonna likely hold on to market themselves with. So the goal of every press clip is to make it look the best possible. Now, design hates doing press clips. Let me just fill you in on a little secret, okay? Because it takes.
Is that a secret? I don't think it's
They
a
hate
secret
doing
anymore.
clips because it's tedious and it's annoying, and I'm very particular about clips. Like even this one, I would reject.
It's, yeah, you can't tell it's a 2-page spread.
Exactly. This is a major 2-page
It's
spread,
huge.
and this doesn't do it justice, to be honest. Now, one of the things, and we always do several different types of press clips for several different reasons. So technically, you should have, so these are the things that they should clip. Full scan of cover. I'll explain all these in a second. Sorry. Okay. So just as an example, and we do these for many different reasons. Let's say it's a magazine. You should have the full scan of cover. You should have design create a cover with a feature. What that means is, here is Boca Mag, and here's the feature. Okay? And then the feature alone. So you'll have, here's Boca Mag, and then you'll have page 1, page 2 of the feature. Okay? Because we like you to have it in many different ways. You know, again, if it's, sometimes the cover on the feature is, you know, it's good. Let's say we're doing a press kit and the client wants to conserve pages, so the cover on the feature is what we do. Let's say somebody's, you know, website, it's honestly just having it in several
I'll
different
give you a good
formats.
example. We were trying to make a video for Swarovski, and we went back to the previous PR company, and they only had that version with
Right.
the clipping sitting on top. And we had this whole section of PR, the press that they had
Right.
gotten, and it looked like crap, because what we needed,
Was the cover only?
we needed the cover
Right.
by itself, and we
Right.
needed to be able to layer it ourselves, and it ended up looking like garbage.
Right.
We couldn't go
So
back and fix it.
You should really have all those versions for the press clips, okay? Now, hold on a second. One of the other things, and see, this clip is done incorrectly, and I'll tell you why. See this area here? Is that pretty? No,
No.
it's ugly. It should just
It's
gross. It should just have like a white box, okay? Or it could have a logo in it or something, like a, you know, it's, okay?
You were so visual too.
One of the other things is attribution. I always make our press department do attribution, like a watermark of our logo. And I always have them include also the link, because sometimes, especially with a web link, sometimes the link could be extinct, but if you have it in there, you can retrieve it. So it's kind of like for when people are doing websites, the programmer could use the link as SEO back traffic. So that's why they're taught to do that. Now again, I'm not scrutinizing clips these days, but if I was, I'd pull them apart. you know, no, it's true. It's, again, listen, this is why we exist because of the press clips that we do. So you wanna make sure that what goes to your client is the best possible, and just as an, just as an example, like, again, let me see, I don't have here.
It's your evidence of work. So you want it to look the best.
Just give you an example. You want it, I mean, this is really old, so I don't even know what this looks like, but even if it's a small feature, okay, you can't make a small feature into a full page feature, but the job of your design team or whoever's doing the clip, I mean, it really should be to maximize it as much as possible. The other thing is, it also gets tricky when you've got a roundup story. So let's say your client was featured and it was like 2 other restaurants were featured. Depending on the clip, the Dropbox is where you have the opportunity to say, you know what, I don't really need my client's immediate competitor in the same clip because I'm giving it to them. You may want to take that out. But I'm just, this is old, I don't know where the books are, but I pulled a really old one, so, I mean, you don't want to see things like this. You want the design team to be able to adjust the white contrast and everything like that. You want to make sure it's readable. Sometimes we highlight things, nothing wrong with that. But you always want to make sure that you have like the proper headline, and not just that you have the proper headline, but that you have the proper section. So let's say it's the Sun Sentinel, and then it ran on the money section, and then the article. And also, oftentimes when we get our hits, we do such a great job with press hits that sometimes there may be a cover feature, like a little call out. You want to make sure that that would be included as well. So literally any part of the mention is what wants to be included. See, like this is a clip well done, because this was a very small piece, but at the end of the day, the clip's what you're looking at, and it's impressive. Just to show you an example, this was one of my clients, and we didn't actually do these press clips, but they're so nicely done. I just want to show you how, important it is. These are actually even all typeset, but just to see, how, again, here, this was probably the size of this, and there were probably other things on the page, but it was, this is what they used to promote their brand, and it was really nicely done.
Yeah, very nice.
You guys did Palm Wonderful?
I did, yeah,
I remember that. My mom definitely bought it.
I launched them in Florida, actually.
And she definitely bought it.
Yeah. Alright. Okay. So, the only time that you should put, okay, so hold on. Let me just go back. So, the Dropbox is the holding place, okay, for the clips. Really, the Dropbox should always be empty. That's truthfully the goal. When you get a clip that's in the Dropbox, you should be looking for it. And there's several things that you should think to yourself of, what do I do with the clip once it's in the Dropbox? Well, I call this the Gab news cycle. Okay? So you have a clip. What was the first thing that you do? You see the Google alert come through. Elysia, you had mentioned it.
When you send it the confirmation, or when you
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when a media clip comes through, it's like, oh my god, there's a torpedo in the room. I have to send it to my client, and you have to be the first person to send it.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Because then they won't give you credit for
100%.
getting it.
They think they did it
It's
themselves.
They think that
amazing how many people
isn't
will
that
take
amazing?
credit for something.
Okay, so we're really big about media confirmations, and I think in your kit here, let's see, well,
No, I'm gonna think that every time a tornado.
now I
Torpedo.
like to be able to give people a heads up, okay? So the notification process is, because you need to think of yourself as like the sorcerer. Because your client, for some reason, if you didn't tell them and you didn't give them a heads up, they will think they magically dreamed it into the universe and it happened themselves. But it's true.
It's true.
The minute that you find out that something's confirmed, and don't be the agency who cried wolf, when it's really done. When it's really done, that means when the reporter says to you, it's done. And even in that situation, you say there's still a chance that it could not go because of breaking news, but just letting you know. Okay? So the minute you know that something's happening, you send a media confirmation. You know, I gave like a sample, like notification of upcoming media hit. Email subject line, Table 42 to be featured in Sun Sentinel, Boca Raton Magazine, and New Times. I did multiple confirmations, okay? Just to give them the heads up that, hey, FYI, we've been communicating with editors on your behalf. We are happy to inform you that there is a chance or that you should be featured in the upcoming blah, 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 blah. The minute the actual confirmation comes through, you immediately send the electronic as a media confirmation. And you say, you know, subject line, media confirmation, Sun Sentinel features, you know, Apura. Very pleased to present you with the enclosed electronic hit in today's sunsentinel.com, secured on your behalf, featuring Apura. Why do I say secured on your behalf? This is something, I once had a client, it was so funny. Because again, clients think they dream this into the universe and it happens on their own. So I have to it's kind of like a polite reminder of like, by the way, you pay us and this is what we do for you, just so in case you say, what did you do for us? I once had a client, Gary Rack, that started getting so annoyed because he has such an ego about the fact that we secured all this press for him that he goes, I don't understand why you have to say that it's secured on your behalf. I'm paying you the money. And I was just like, because it's secured on your behalf.
It's like, get over it.
Get over it, we have talent, this is what we do. So anyway, so you send the media confirmation. Now, you can do several things, and that's what I call the Gab news cycle with that media hit. The bottom line is, if you want to create an explosion happens from lots of different things setting off at the same time. So just putting somebody in the newspaper or putting them on a blog post, that's great, but it shouldn't stop there. You should teach and educate your client, and you should also maximize that media hit in all different places. So basically, we want to like perpetuate the audience, right? You know, we want to drop something in a puddle and have that puddle be as big as possible. So the Gab news cycle. So you send it to the client. Post on social media. Now again, it doesn't matter if you're doing social media for the client or not. You should educate them to post it on social media because you need to tell and teach the client how to become their own promotional person. So if somebody gets an article in the Sun Sentinel and you're in the Sun Sentinel today, great. Post it on social media if you're responsible for doing their social media. If you're not, send it to them to send to everybody they know and to post it on their own social media. Post on website. And again, it doesn't matter whether you're doing their website or you're not doing their website, educate them to post it on their website. Education is part of the process. Post on Gab's social media, okay? Chelsea is not responsible for posting clips on social media. And the way that we post clips on social media, it's the individual account executive that should do it. And we basically either use hot off the press, check out so-and-so as featured in so-and-so, or guess who's gabbing, question mark, check out blah, 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 as featured in blah, blah, blah. And I like to also give like a little thank you to reporters, like, you know, thank you Bill from Boca Magazine, because then you could tag them and different things like that for a great feature. You don't want to thank them, this is very careful. You don't want to publicly thank a reporter in the wrong way. You want to comment on their writing and say, great job, but a reporter, the PR process is not he's my friend so he's going to write about my client process. You don't want to make the person feel like they just paid your paycheck. Mm-hmm. You don't want to make the reporter feel like, you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's all about making it newsworthy. So if you dare, let's say, post it on social media and you're trying to give a shout out to the reporter, you don't want to do it in the wrong way. You want to say like, you know, guess who's gabbing, check out this great feature from Bill Cetera on Apura. Because then it's like you're commenting and complimenting the fact that he's such a great writer, mm-hmm. but you're not saying, thank you Bill Cetera for this great feature that you did on our client. Like that's just, nobody wants that associated with, no reporter should want that associated. You know what I mean? Okay, what else? Alright, so the other news cycle, let's say, so you post it on Gab's social media, and then what you're gonna do is, again, depending on the reporting, I'm sorry, you should, do you make them do this? You print one for the agency's book and one for the client?
No, we've only been doing the one press book.
Okay, that's fine. So you're gonna print one for the agency press book, unless Allison tells you not to, because she may have people doing that for us, okay? And also, you know, if we have a meeting coming up, we'll prepare some printouts for the clients of recent press hits so that it's tangible and they can see it. Long time ago, we used to buy, let's say, we used to ask clients if they want us to buy like 2 to 5 copies on their behalf and bill them for it. These days, people really don't buy any printed copies anymore. Just a very important note that back copies are very expensive. So if I buy the Sun Sentinel today, it'll cost me $1. If you want to buy it yesterday, it'll cost you like $15. So most clients, they're so cheap these days that they don't even want to pay for that. So it's very important that same day, for our own records, in order to create the clip, that if we don't have the publication here, we try and buy it same day if possible. If there's something like, okay, we did something really great, we put somebody on the cover of a magazine, we'll probably just buy a couple of copies and drop it to them, just so that they see it again, or the publicist will do something like that, or we'll buy some so that we can have it here just to show off.
I have a question about that. So since we have like logins for Sun Sentinel and Miami Heralds, or like this is just an example, say,
Sure.
Can you check like yesterday's through that?
Yes.
And it's free, so would we still go out and buy the newspaper? I know we get them anyway.
Yes, because we'd still want to get the, it's a great question.
Mhm.
And if the publication, we'd still want to see how it looks in the paper. I give you a
Okay.
perfect
different.
example.
Royal Blues.
Yes,
And there's different editions. You have
Is there
Broward
different than
County
that
and
on
Palm
the
Beach.
PDF?
So she
Two
sent
totally
me
separate
this.
books.
She sent me this scan, and I was like, oh, and I hate looking at scans before I go to the newspaper because I never want to get disappointed if I see clear like a big
It can make it
feature.
appear much larger.
Exactly. So I'm like, great, you know, it's like the cover, like that's where I wanted it to be, right? Then I go to the newsstand, I'm like, shit, it's like this, it's like the bottom of the cover, you know, I'm like, I shouldn't have, like, and then I'm like looking at it, I'm like, wait a second, the online PDF says Broward, and my edition is Palm Beach, so it ran us on the cover of the money section in Broward. It ran on the Palm Beach cover, but not as the main
Bottom.
story on the bottom of the story.
And you can get both editions. Both editions are available
Yeah.
online. You get
And there's
just a drop
something-
down
took it to
menu.
the
So-
client,
So you can
you
see
made
it.
sure I went to Broward when I did
Right.
it.
So when
Larry
you
knew
look at
that.
the PDF, it looks different than the print, even if it was.
Well, there's two
They
different
look
versions.
two different.
The Palm Beach, it's identical to the actual paper, but you
Yeah.
have to make sure you're in the right edition.
Okay.
At the very, I'll show you at
They're
the very
different
top.
placements.
You can drop down the menu and you can actually see what Palm Beach County's paper
No,
looks
that
like
makes sense. I was
versus what
just wondering.
Broward's
So
does.
like if the
Right.
Broward's version on the print and then the Broward's version online.
You want to
if
have
it was
everything
different.
clipped
Right.
because you want to get as much, credit as possible for the
Mhm.
feature.
That's
Well,
like
'cause
Florida
I was
Weekly.
also just wondering because you said that now we've been clipping high resolution PDFs. So I was wondering if we were clipping that in place of the newspaper scans.
That's a good question. I would still get the newspaper scan also and get
Uh-huh.
that clipped in addition to
It's
the
identical.
Get it all.
If it's identical, no, but sometimes
They-
it's,
they
it's a
refer-
better resolution quality, the PDF.
Yeah.
But again, maybe
They refer to it as the E edition, so it's actually
right.
it is that physical
Right.
paper, but it's just
it's
a much better
what
quality.
It looks the best,
Uh-huh.
but really we should always know how something really went into print versus the
Mhm.
PDF because it could still be different. Okay. All right. So basic press. So we know, okay. So once you've approved it from the Dropbox and you've done everything you need to do with it, okay? You've sent it to the client, you've put it in the client press book, etc. You've posted it on Facebook. That's when you should you should actually move it from the Dropbox to your press folder. Okay? Be careful, of course, when you do that, but that's when you should move it. Alright, going back to Client Command Center and the PR folder. Let me see what else. Okay, so I wanna talk about the collateral folder. This is almost like the same concept. The reason why I created the collateral management folder is because I wanted a snapshot of everything that we've had to order for a client. So in case we had to reorder it, it doesn't just live in the expense folder, which is all clients. It's a snapshot of just everything in the history of that client that needed to be done, what vendor we used, how much it cost, how much we charged them, etc. There's gonna be things that come up along the way. So your details are really important here. Like, actually, let me give you an example. So Pura is pretty new.
I put the window in there, didn't I?
I'm gonna do, let's say, farmer's table, or
Did you see what was in the Imperial one? Can't see that far away. I'm pretty sure I hit the window.
sorry, and what's my hard stop? Okay. Alright, so this is a better example. So again, you not having ever known Farmer's Table, having to maybe work on this project, this is keeping your team and keeping things organized for your clients. So I can look at Farmer's Table and immediately know, okay, what date we placed the order, what the item was, what the vendor was, what the vendor contact was, what quantity they ordered, because reorders are gonna be coming up, what the price was to the agency, what the price was to the client, any kind of notes we need to know, turnaround time, etc. Okay? So that exists specifically for any clients that we do collateral management for. Let me see here. Sorry, how do we escape? Okay. Alright. There are definitely gonna be some additional folders that you're gonna see depending on the client, and I mean it's never gonna be completely standardized. It's gonna be on a need-to basis. Let's see here, media lists. We don't have like a set format. Of course, like a media list, we would put, any kind of media list that gets created for a client, we'd save in the media list folder. It's just much easier to section things and itemize things in this manner in terms of folders, rather than having one blob of information, which is probably what some of your peeves are in looking at some of the folders. So a really organized PR folder should have separate categories for everything, because those are all different projects that should live in different folders as part of the main folder. For some clients we do phone scripts. There's a social media folder for many clients if we do social media for them. And basically we do, this is Chelsea's portion of what she does for the Gab group. She creates social media messaging I have her do it 1 month at a time. And then it's the account executive's job to approve that social media copy or make any changes to that copy. And this is basically, how we create our social media plans, and then it all gets, so she'll match up, let's say, all the photos to all the messaging, all the pre-posts, and then we make it seem as if we go on social media every day and do that for the client. Again, for me, it's all about smarter, not harder. If you're organized and you stay proactive, there's a lot of tricks and tools that if you just keep on track with doing what we request of you, it really doesn't get to be overwhelming. It's when you don't stay on track that you then realize, oh my god, I was supposed to update this, and I was supposed to do this, and I was supposed to do that. I know just in the essence of time, I don't, today I cut it a little short, and I know that you all have different time. I think one of the last things I want to just talk about, a couple of really quick things. When we send a media clip, okay, one of the things I forgot to tell you about is printed clips. Because one of the things that design needs is time in order to create a scanned clip. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll send what we call a quick scan. Just to let them know that our design team is working on it, but in case just to inform you that you've been, congratulations, you've been featured in today's Palm Beach Illustrated, in this month's Palm Beach Illustrated magazine. Attached is a quick scan for your records, for your review, and please note that our design team is producing a professional clip for your records. When the professional clip comes back, and we've approved it, it looks great, that's when we send all of the full contact information in terms of circulation, readership, and add value. Now, we have a circulation, readership, and add value cheat sheet, okay, that I've had Nicole put together. And basically, that's where you should be pulling your information from, okay? In terms of online circulation, I want to just have you understand this. Cision isn't always up to date.
Not even
I
close.
use the bigger number, okay, because it's really important to not devalue what we do here at the company. Circulation is the number of publications or copies that a magazine produces. But let's say you and I are sharing an apartment together, and we both have a subscription to Boca Raton magazine. And then I invite 7 friends over, and they come over like every other week, and they always read my magazines. What's that called?
Reviewership?
It's actually called pass-along readers, okay? So every publication has an average of, let's say, it could be from 2 all the way up to 6 pass-along readers. Pass-along readers times circulation equals what?
Actual readership.
Yeah.
Correct. So what we do is we provide every client with a couple of things when we send a media confirmation through. First of all, I like to be able to tell them a little bit about the publication, and Cision has a summary of every publication. But we provide them with circulation, readership, and then estimated ad value. Please don't make the mistake of reading ad value off of Cision that says it's like $25 and thinking that that's what you should send through. Because what that means is per column inch. Okay, so if I get somebody on the cover of Sunset Little Body Business section, that does not mean that that costs $25 to put that in there. I would base it off of a color full page ad, which could be $10,000 in the Sun Sentinel. Okay, so we never want to devalue our placements. So circulation, and again, this is all in the circulation cheat sheet, but circulation is the number that's actually the number of magazines that's produced by the entity. Readership equals circ times pass-along readers, okay? And that's something that, again, is calculated for you in the circulation cheat sheet, because depending on whether it's the Sun Sentinel, we're giving you estimates. And then ad value is based on, let's say, trying to make it more tangible to the client. Well, if I got you on, and this is the things that you have to really look for, that I can't train you on every single thing in terms of how to think. I mean, if we got somebody on the cover of the newspaper or the cover of the magazine, I mean, you don't want to mitigate that. That's ad value that, you really have to hype up, versus if we just got a blurb, it's at minimum probably $500 to $750 just for a blurb, so we base it off of the depending on whether it was a 1-page feature or a 2-page feature is how you should base it on the ad value. So like Apura, which was 2 pages of full coverage, how do you calculate the estimated ad value?
It's 2 full page.
It's 2 full page.
4 color
Color,
ads.
exactly, because black and white is different than color. Color has a much higher value. Okay, then what if Apura was also listed in the table of contents? I mean, not everything is listed in the table of contents, and there was a picture there. That's 3 pages. You know what I'm saying? That's maybe 2.5, whatever. I mean, you have to approximate the ad value, but the bottom line is that you just have to maximize what we do for clients, because honestly, you can't even pay to go on the cover of a magazine, or a newspaper. You can't pay for something like that, okay? I once put It's My Binky in Newsweek International. Do you know how much that is? It was right there next to Gucci's pacifier. That's like $35,000 just to put one ad in. So if I didn't do my due diligence and tell my client it was $35,000 just for one ad, how can they possibly value my service? So you have to educate. It's a really important part. There's a lot that I want to teach you, but I mean, the time goes by really quickly. I'm just going to leave you on one last thing that I just want you to walk away with. Just something to think about, because I think a lot of people get confused. I thought of this one day. I'm like, I should put it in a book. This is a tree. Well, because I drove by the gas station one day and I saw this. This is a tree with a sign on it. Tell me the difference between PR marketing, advertising, etc.
Like, is that true? Well, it wouldn't be.
You direct traffic past the sign?
Okay, let me show you the difference.
I'm dying to see this.
I wish
Okay.
I'd been there when you came up with it.
Advertising means I paid to put that sign on the tree. Okay? PR means I convinced the gas station owner to put the sign on the tree. Okay. Marketing means I told people that there's a sign on the tree that they have to go see.
You really should do that. You should do that in the class. You really should do an adjunct professorship. Because that would be like really good.
love that.
That's a great way of putting it.
And at this company, what collateral management means is I gave the gas station owner like the price on how much it would be to put the sign on the tree. Okay?
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
There's-
Adjunct professor, that should be the start of your intro. Hi, Michelle, what is this?
It all starts with the sign on the tree. But when you think about like what I just told you, PR, the Gab news cycle, how do you perpetuate the message? How do you take, that one placement and turn it into maximizing that message? All right? PR, you may just have, you got somebody into the news hit. That's just one part of it. You want to really emphasize that. You want to do as much as possible with it. And that's what marketing is all about. And that's the thing that you have to learn at this company. We're about integrated brand communication. So the buck doesn't just stop at PR. Because if I got my client in the newspaper, well, how else can I maximize that? I can put it in an email blast. Oh, then technically they were as seen in the Sun Sentinel. And then they were like, as seen in the Sun Sentinel who won this award. Like, where does that go? Do I put it on their menu? Do I put it on their brochure? How do I maximize the message? So that's just something in general to keep in mind, okay? Even if I put somebody as an ad in, a magazine, but I really convince them to put the ad in the magazine and there's no payment for it, that's what PR is about. PR is about getting something as part of a strategy or changing, it's really, some people are still so confused about what is the difference between all of these things. And it's really very simple. If you pay somebody to put the message in there, it's always going to be advertising. But if you convince a reporter to write about it, and that's why we have to work so hard on our messaging and our materials, because you're not going to make somebody write a story if it's not newsworthy. So that's what we'll talk about next time around, but just remember the tree.
You gotta coin that.
Do you want me to?